Right, hello, everyone. We're now live with Thomas Williams. So this is going to be a new probably like a test because I probably want to do a series on geopolitical problems because I haven't done much on this channel lately. I've been thinking let's do something a bit different and go over some of the issues that no one really talks about. So the first one is on the Nagorno Karabakh conflict, which is a really it's referred to as a frozen conflict between Armenia and Azajerbajain and the unrecognized republic known as Artsakh or Nagorno Karabakh. I think I should introduce the subject. What first I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a map of the region, so you can actually understand what's actually going on in the conflict. Because this is a conflict that could escalate if things if people are not careful. I mean, we have one side, we have Armenia backed by the Russians, we have Azerbaijan backed by Turkey and Pakistan, and the United States. And you have countries like Israel, which is involved on both sides. It is a very, very sensitive issue in both countries. I mean, over 1 million people have been displaced by the conflict within the occupied regions and within on the Azeri population within Armenia and the Armenian population within Azerbaijan. This conflict can be referred to a lot of people as an ethno-nationalist conflict, because particularly on both sides, they're basically purged of ethnic group and expelled them. They basically effectively get a bit of an ethnic state in both sides. I'm just going to share this map. All right. As I'm sharing that at a quick moment, this is the quick map of the conflict. You can see legally all this land is supposed to be a part of Azerbaijan, but you can see by the orange color, that's a territory occupied by the Armenian and the Nagorno Karabakh army. And the red is Nagorno Karabakh itself. And this is very sensitive. Now, there's a massive economic push in Azerbaijan as a result. And you can see why. Particularly, I choose this map because actually show that the oil pipeline going through Azerbaijan through Georgia and Turkey. And one thing about Azerbaijan is known for its oil, particularly on the coast of the Black Sea. It's got to Baku here on the Caspian coast. There's a lot of oil rigs. And it's the biggest fuel in the Azerbaijani economy. Azerbaijan is actually doing well for itself compared to Armenia. The Armenian economy is completely restricted. It's largely agrarian, and its border with Turkey is completely closed off. Its border with Iran may as well be closed off. It's very hard to get through it. And as you can see, there's a little autonomous province here where the cursor is right now, and this currently belongs to Azerbaijan. So you can't really get through that border. The only border that you can get out of is Georgia. So really, the only country that borders them that have a proper trading relationship is with Georgia. And you can see what the problems that the Armenians have with their economy, which is why the Armenian government is even considering joining the EU, but at the moment the pivots itself to join the Eurasian Union with the Russians. Effectively, Armenian politics is dominated by Russia. It's pretty much a Russian client state, like Belarus at this point. In terms of Azerbaijan, is very interesting with Turkey. Turkey is currently arming the Azerbaijani forces on the border. The interesting fact about the border is that the border is completely fortified. It means fortified with trenches. even along northern Armenia, where there's no disputed territories. So a brief overview of this conflict. It began in 1988, and this is because the Nagorno Karabakh, which is all autonomous province on the Azerbaijani SSR, wanted to join the Armenian SSR, and they tried to do it, which sparked off the conflict between two nations. And when after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it escalated to complete utter war, where Armenia and Azerbaijan declared independence from the Soviet Union. Almost immediately, war was declared over the territory. There was a ceasefire in 1994, and Armenia successfully occupied the territory in orange and in red, which is Nagorno Karabakh. Since then, up to 2008, the border was stable, but after 2008, tensions rose against the border. There were strong clashes across the border between both sides. There were a couple of helicopters that got shot down in 2012, I believe, or 2013, and 2016. In 2016, there was outright gunfire at the border, and people actually died. This is a very tight situation, and if it escalates one way, I mean, if Azerbaijan tries to occupy Artsakh or Nagorno Karabakh, also known as, it will draw Russia into the war. If Armenia does opposite, it will likely draw Turkey into the war. So this is a very tight issue. Also, I should mention the Syria civil war has also increased tensions in the region. As some people may know, Syria has a large Armenian ethnic minority, and lots of the Armenians flee from Syria into Armenia and Nagorno Karabakh, which is heightened tensions. At the moment, the tensions are higher than they've ever been, but there have been some talks of peace and some conferences.
By the way, James asks, is Azerbaijan in Europe or Asia?
That's the debating issue. Technically, it's very considered in Europe by some, but others in Asia. I mean, Armenia is on Eurovision. The Armenians consider themselves as part of Europe, but geographically, because in the South Caucasus or south of the Caucasus Mountains, a lot of people see it as part of Asia. I mean, it borders Turkey and Iran. It's not exactly considered Europe by everyone, but culturally, it's more European. It's more Eastern Europe culturally.
The source of this conflict basically dates back, as Cameron mentioned, to the 1920s when the territory was created by the Soviet Union. The problem with this is, as you can see on the map, is Nagorno Karabakh is a region that is 95% ethnic Armenian, but it is located entirely within Azerbaijan.
But the Karabakh government and the Armenians actually do also lay claim to the area in orange because they occupy it, and it's basically popular at this point. It's basically this military base. That's all there is in that land area.
Yeah, there have been a couple of instances that have occurred in the recent past which have caused diplomatic incidents between the two countries. So in 2009, during the 2009 Eurovision Song Contest, Armenia's entry displayed the monument called We Are Our Mountains, which is a monument located within the Nagorno-Karabakh. Azerbaijan was outraged by this and demanded that any picture of the monument be removed from Armenia's entry. So to protest this, when Armenia was casting its votes in 2009, the woman who presented it had the picture of We Are Our Mountains on the back of a clipboard and a billboard with the monument on it in the background. And each time she cast votes, she showed her clipboard again and again and again. That caused a diplomatic incident between the two countries. And in Azerbaijan, if you were Azerbaijani and you voted for Armenia's entry in 2009, the secret police force came round to your home and brought you in for interrogation for why you voted for Armenia, because voting for Armenia was considering backing the enemy.
Yeah. There's also a couple issues with other countries as well. Iran's interesting. It's slightly put on me, put Azerbaijan in this, because one interesting thing about Iran, it has a very high Azerbaijani population, and actually the only reason that Azerbaijan is a independent state is because it was annexed by the Russian Empire, and then a lot of Azerbaijanis or Azeris are also more known in this conflict, or pro Azerbaijan in the conflict. So Iran's stance is very interesting. Even though they want a trade relationship with Armenia, they have a massive lobby group which is pro Azerbaijan. Israel's interesting as one of the countries as well. They have positive relations with Armenia, a very good trade relationship. But also see some sort of a relationship actually between the two countries because of the Holocaust in the Second World War. Often compared to the Armenian genocide. But at the same time, Israel buys a lot of the oil from Azerbaijan, and they also arm the Azerbaijani government as well as the Armenians. So there's a bit of two-faced attitude towards the entire conflict. Georgia's another interesting country as well. Because Georgia is they try to be neutral, but the thing is they have a large Armenian minority in there, and not Armenian minorities pro Armenian, but most Georgians are pro. Well, Georgian government is trying to promote Azerbaijan. Russia has limited bases for Armenia. Almost all Armenian weapons and tanks come from Russia. Also, in particular Armenia, there's a bit of attitude against Azeris because they see it as fighting a war for the survival. Because if you think about it, it's a tiny nation. It's surrounded by British enemies, and some more nationalist figures in Armenia really consider a sort of, should I say, living space? I think we should have more living space because the Armenia should be larger. You go inside, the Armenian identity is based on my Ararat as well. Ararat is completely in Turkey, so we have this like siege mentality.
To address the comments going on here, James says, I didn't know Eurovision was so controversial. I get angry when Ireland gives us 0 votes. Paddy Twats. What's the current situation at the moment with this conflict? Before we address the conflict, I just want to say about the Eurovision. Yes, Eurovision can get controversial, and it has done in the past. A couple of entries that I remember from looking at the list I saw a while ago, so this may be vague. When Israel did its entry in the 1990s, they put forward either a gay or a transgender person forward as their singer. As a result of that, Orthodox Jews were outraged and had several protests in places like Tel Aviv at the act. And in 2015, 2014, in the 2014 entry for Eurovision, Russia's entry was booed en masse by people because of the situation with Crimea, and that led to a Russian minister coming out and saying, and I shit you not, this is not verbatim but paraphrased, Europe is the haven for homosexuals. Because that same year, Austria put forward its entry, and its entry was a transgender person, and so the very conservative Eastern European countries were pissed off, much like Israel was back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
As for the conflict at the moment, it's tense. Relations between the two are beginning to fall, but they are not completely over with. They are still very tense, and they probably will remain tense for the foreseeable future.
There's a couple of things about the ceasefire people have to know. First, the ceasefire required the Armenian soldiers to withdraw from the border. They haven't done it. So checking the ceasefire actually has been broken legally because that's a law. So and plus there's been conflicts across the border. You got to also remember both countries are still technically at war legally. All happened in IFO was an official ceasefire, similar to what happened between North and South Korea. Also, one of the reasons why I brought this subject up because there's actually been some talks about trying to settle the conflict. Because Armenia got a new president last year who's slightly more pro-EU, who wants to push Armenia towards EU membership, and Azerbaijan wants to end the conflict. And going to Armenia economically, it's just basically isolated, and they really want to get the economy going. The Armenian country the country has basically been using the diaspora to invest in the country and rely on that. And they have a massive program to increase the diaspora to move back. But, interestingly, there's more Armenians living outside of Armenia in it, which is why they have a policy to encourage migration from it into the country. But I've got this article here that I want to go through recently on the conflict. So, the EU, UN welcome for in America, Armenia, Azerbaijan relations of Nagorno Karabakh. The EU welcomed on Friday a recent foreign relation between Azerbaijan and Armenia over the conflict in Nagorno Karabakh. Armenia is technically at war with Azerbaijan over the territory of Nagorno Karabakh, which is the only de facto under control of Yerevan, which Yerevan is the capital of Armenia, fighting between ethnic Azeris and Armenians. So it's up to 1991, and a ceasefire was agreed in 1994. Armenia and Azerbaijan were again close to war in April 2016, but the regimes in Yerevan appears to be a game changer. As I said before, the Armenia got changed. They had an election last year, and they got a new prime minister. His name just came out of mine, so I'll look up in a minute shortly. Exchanges in recent months between the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, there is Nikol Pashinyan, and the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, if that's how it's pronounced, as well as meetings between foreign ministers of the spices of cultures, Organization of Cooperation of Europe, Minsk Group, recently in Paris. I'm going to say this Organization of Security Cooperation in Europe is chaired by Russia, United States, and France. It doesn't say on here who it's chaired by. To send a positive single for progress in the peaceful settlement of Nagorno Karabakh, the EU said in a statement. And here's a tweet banner on the conflict. Recent exchanges between the presidents of foreign ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan said a positive signal of progress of peaceful settlement on Nagorno Karabakh conflict. The EU looks forward to full implementation of the outcomes. Indeed, last December, Aliyev tweeted that the year of 2019 will give it a great impetus on the Armenian-Azerbaijan conflict settlement process, and the only way for a new Armenian leadership to carry out their plans on transforming the country is to resolve the conflict in Azerbaijan. Pashinyan tweeted parallel peaceful resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict was top priority to us. The optimistic narrative of the head of state, followed by contact minister level, related to between the foreign minister of Azerbaijan, Ima Manidov, and the acting foreign minister of Armenia, Zohar Minister, I can't pronounce these names, but held in 16th of January in Paris under the inspiration of co-chairs of the Organization of Security for Europe, Minsk Group. The European Union is looking forward for implementation of the outcomes, including the recent Foreign Agreement on the concrete measures of population peace, as well as consideration steps of reintegrating negotiations, the EU said. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, to welcome in Paris meeting, because welcome the nations agreement, they need to take concrete measures to prepare population for peace. So basically, there's been very decent negotiations going on recently in last week, and this is because both the president of Armenia and Azerbaijan want to basically apply for EU membership. So do you have any thoughts on that, sir?
What, on the ceasefire?
Yeah. No, the potential peace that's trying.
I mean, I hope that the peace is successful, but ultimately I don't think it will be, because there are still a lot of tensions there. I'm just reading through the article on Wikipedia about Nagorno Karabakh. In September 2018, a soldier of the Armenian army was killed by Azeri gunfire while serving at the post. So people are still being killed on this border. So I don't see it being resolved anytime soon, but I hope I'm wrong, and I do hope there is a peaceful solution to this.
I heard two details about negotiations. Now, Armenia is basically doubling down on its claims to Nagorno Karabakh, but not occupied territories. That has to make clear. But Azerbaijan really wants some sovereignty over Nagorno Karabakh. So the chances are it won't be resolved, but both sides want to resolve.
I don't even see a way of resolving this conflict overall, because making them independent hasn't worked. Giving them over to one country or the other is just not practical. So I don't see how it actually can be solved.
Right. In my opinion, there has to be some sort of joint sovereignty over the area, and that may solve the conflict. The main problem with Nagorno Karabakh and occupied territories, that Nagorno Karabakh is about 97% Armenian, and the occupied territory is it's meant to be populated by Azeris, but it's people just abandoned that area and move to either Azerbaijan or Iran. So in reality, it's not very popular any sort of solution that involves Azerbaijan having sovereignty over that territory.
I think the only way it can be solved is through shared sovereignty, really, if that is the solution. But even then, I don't know how you would work that out. It's something that the two countries are going to have to discuss themselves, really, and hope that they come to some kind of a solution.
Another problem with this is that Azerbaijan claims it's Azerbaijani territory, but the Armenians claim that it was part of the 1920 the first Armenian Republic, which it was. So the Armenians also claim that the Azerbaijanis took the territory from them.
Ultimately, it's going to have to be one of those situations where the big powers are going to have to come in and involve themselves. There's going to have to be some sort of an agreement between the French, the US, and the Russians. And they're the ones that are going to have to chair the peace talks between the two countries if anything wants to be solved.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally deadlock. No one can move past the front line, even if they wanted to. It's basically trench warfare. I could show some images of it, actually. Because if you see the images of it, it's basically like World War I trenches on the border between these countries.
To address James's comment in the thing, he says, doesn't Azerbaijan have a more progressive economy? I know they've hosted sporting events the past few years. They do. Azerbaijan has a lot more of a market economy than Armenia does. But the problem with Azerbaijan is it's a dictatorship. controlled by the Aliyev family, and it has been for a very long time. There is a lot of corruption within the country. There is next to no freedom of speech. There isn't political assassinations that I'm aware of, but there is torture of people who are dissident to the regime. There are lots of political prisoners, people who are sent to prison for very long periods of time on trumped up charges. Journalists are persecuted within the country. So it's got a market economy, but it's not a free country by any means. It's very tightly controlled, very authoritarian, borderline totalitarian in certain aspects. And the Aliyev clan don't look like they're going to give up hold of the country anytime soon. As for the sporting events, they have hosted lots of sporting events in the past, Eurovision in 2012 and a few others. But the problem with these sporting events, and this links back to Azerbaijan's totalitarian nature, borderline totalitarian nature, is when they were building these stadiums, they demolished the houses and forced people out, and they didn't give them the ability to find the new housing. They had to find it on their own, and the government did not provide them any housing. So they went in and said, we're demolishing these apartment blocks and we're building here. You've got to find your own home now. You're on your own. And if you didn't move the house, then they would just demolish the house while you were still in it, as they did with Eurovision. Now, the way that Azerbaijan justified this was comparing it to what we did with the Olympics when we were building the Olympic Village. But the reason why this is not a fair comparison is because when we did that, we gave the people who lived in that area plenty of warning in advance, and we gave them some compensation to help them find a new home. So whereas Azerbaijan did not do any of these things. This is why the country is borderline totalitarian, but it is extremely authoritarian at the bare minimum.
Yeah. So I thought I was share example of the basic border between Armenia, Armenia and Azerbaijan, the militarized border. And both sides are basically dug trenches. Basically, this is why they refer to it as a frozen conflict, because literally nobody can move across the border. And it's been that way since 1994. Within Armenia as well, historically, this is why it's very hard to get concessions from Armenia. Historically, Armenia used to be a lot larger, and because of the genocide that happened during the First World War between the Ottomans, a lot of lands were historically Armenian and not Armenian, and this is why there's very strong nationalist attitude in Armenia. If I actually saw, I think I got a map somewhere of historical Armenia.
It's worth mentioning as well, as you said, the Armenians are extremely nationalistic. And they have been since World War I, because of the way the Ottomans treated them, sort of a self-defense mechanism in a way. James, just quickly, James asks, so what's your predictions for the future on this? You was mentioning earlier Turkey and Russia could get involved, as we know tensions are high between the two of them. I don't know what the future of the conflict will be overall. It could go either way, but considering the tensions between the two countries at the moment, Azerbaijan and Armenia, I don't see it coming to an end anytime soon. And because Turkey and Russia are going to have to get involved to solve this, and because tensions are high between the two, that could make it even more difficult to resolve.
Right. I think this is a very good depict this. Now, the area in blue is the first Armenian Republic that was right. how would I explain this now? So after the Russian Revolution, what happened in the South Caucasus nations basically rebelled as one bloc, as a Transcaucasian Federation. So Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia was one nation called the Transcaucasian Federation because of the threat of a Soviet and Turkish invasion. But this collapsed within the year, and the First Armenian Republic was proclaimed, and it occupied the border in basically blue here. But at the same time, the first treaty, the end of empire, well, the first treaty to end the war between the Ottomans and the West was Treaty of Sevres. This wasn't the first treaty, but the Treaty of Sevres gave Armenia this area, even though theoretically didn't control it, and lot of this area to the south were predominantly Kurdish, and lot of this area to the north was probably Pontic Greek before the Greek genocide, which is another genocide that actually happened. So this was the intended borders of the president of William Wilson for Armenia, and lots of Armenian nationalists do claim that this should be actually the border of Armenia, even though it's more than twice the size of the modern state, and it will never be achieved.
Also, in addition to that, if you look at that map, a lot of that territory goes into Turkey as well, and there's no way that the Turks, especially under Erdogan, are going to give up any territory. So it's a pipe dream, basically. That border is never going to be recognised and never going to be achieved.
The interesting thing about the Treaty of Sevres, it basically gives a lot of land to the country. So, in the south, like around Silica should have really become a French colony. The eastern coast and East Thrace should have been part of Greece, but that didn't happen. Well, Eastern Thrace, except Istanbul, was meant to be part of Greece, but that didn't happen because of Ataturk, who kept fighting on. And the reason why, when Armenia actually joined the Soviet Union in 1922, the Armenian government made a choice to join the Soviet Union and surrender to them rather than the Turkish government. And the reason they did that, they feared another genocide. Because remember, at the time, the 1920 Armenian Republic had an enormous refugee crisis. I mean, I think there were almost 500,000 refugees from modern day Turkey. Actually, you know what? I'll bring up on the map of the Treaty of Sevres because that might be interesting. And if you look at the other maps, I mean, the great extent of Armenia was under Tigranes the Great. This was after. Well, this was basically before the Roman conquest in the region and the rise of the Seleucid Empire, but at this great extent, Armenia basically controlled a very large land area. Even some of the most ardent nationalists do kind of want that, but it's never going to happen.
Jimbo Jones asks, any idea of the relative populations?
Of Armenia, it's about 3 million, just under 3 million. In Artsakh on Nagorno Karabakh, it's about 200,000 people. Well, it's between 150,000 and 200,000. But the thing is, Armenia is a very corrupt country, and they're well known for lying about the statistics, especially when Armenia has a very low birth rate. So the chances are the population of both Armenia and Artsakh is actually lower than actually say.
It's worth mentioning, by the way, that countries within the Caucasus and Russia, they tend to have very low birth rates, to the point where some of the countries have seen actual declines in their population.
Yeah, I should mention it. Azerbaijan, I think Azerbaijan is actually the exception for that rule.
Yeah, they have bucked the trend, but they're one of the few countries in the Caucasus to do so.
Yeah. Also, this green part is important. Also about Armenians. So this area had a large Armenian minority. There also large Armenian community in on the Aegean Sea and Istanbul itself, which this map doesn't really represent.
The mainland of...
Sorry.
So, the current border between Armenia and Turkey was settled between the Treaty of Moscow in 1922. Because both the Soviet Union and after Turkey won the fighting war, even though the Soviet Union ambitions to occupy, well, basically what was considered a roughly Armenian land by Woodrow Wilson. And this goes back to Wilson's idea of national sovereignty, where basically he believed that every ethnic group should rule itself. And you can see this on the Treaty of Versailles in Europe, the Wilsonian version. Is there anything else to cover on this issue?
No, I think we've covered it all, really. To summarise, the situation is a mess, and it likely will remain a mess for a considerable future because of the nationalistic sentiment of Armenia, coupled with the stubbornness of Azerbaijan. I don't think there'll be a resolution to this anytime soon. Nor do I see a way of it being resolved. The only way things may change is if there is a change of government in both countries, a change in attitudes of both countries, and a more willingness to negotiate. Until then, this situation will likely remain static.
Also, one thing everyone has to mention, it really could bring an international conflict because Turkey is in NATO. If there's ever a conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan that could bring Turkey in, it could escalate as Russia is guaranteed basically Armenian independence and sovereignty of the area like occupies. So while Russia's there, nothing will change, and while Turkey's there, nothing will change on the other side. Unless Turkey and Russia come to a compromise on the issue, it won't change.
No, I agree. Basically, in order for things to change, the Turks, the Russians, the Armenians, and the Azerbaijanis have to be willing to negotiate.
And one more thing on the issue is that the the Armenian government really doesn't want to deal with Turkey while Turkey refuses to recognize the Armenian genocide, which that is another kind of worms to go into. The recognition of the genocide.
That's another thing as well. There needs to be respect between the two groups in order for there to be negotiations. And because the Turks still, to this day, deny the Armenian genocide, that respect is not there. And that makes it even more difficult to resolve the conflict.
I'll say, while President Erdogan's there, it's never going to happen.
No. And because Erdogan made himself de facto dictator back in 2017 with his referendum, it is unlikely that the situation, it's unlikely that he's going to leave anytime soon. So as a result, this will not be resolved anytime soon.
Yeah.
Just one more thing to quickly say. I've put a link to a video from the Caspian Report who covers this situation. I've seen it, and I think he covers it in a very neutral and unbiased way. He's not completely correct, but he's the person that he's given the best sort of view of this video, so this conflict that I've seen so far on YouTube. So go and check out that video if you want to learn more about this situation.
Right. And before I end, I'll just say I'm probably going to do another stream like this on a conflict, and I may expand on this issue because I think we briefly went over it, but there's so much in the history of Armenia and Azerbaijan in the Soviet Union, and not just in the Soviet Union, but before the First World War, that's another involved this.
There is also another conflict, if you want to check out, that's related to the Caucasus, the Chechen Wars. This is another Caucasus conflict, which was a complete mess, and the history of it dates back hundreds and hundreds of years.
And you also can look at Abkhazia and South Ossetia, and Dagestan in Russia, and Circassia in Russia, where there's still ongoing tensions and conflicts there. I mean, the Caucasus is a bigger mess than the Balkans. It really is. If you see a map of the amount of languages that exist in the Caucasus, it makes the Balkans look like a reception maths lesson in comparison. It really does.
Yeah, the Caucasus is one gigantic mess, and it's a mess that is largely the fault of the Soviet Union, and in particular, especially when it comes to Chechnya, Joseph Stalin.
Pakistan. But again, this is another kind of worms to go into, particularly when it's not just Russia, it's the Safavid Persians and the Ottomans, and it goes back even further than that. So, do you want to wrap up and now?
Yeah, we'll end it now. I hope you enjoyed this video. This might become a series on the channel, depending on what reception we get for it. But yeah, thank you for watching, people.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.